right, I am Adam Rack,
And I'm Joel Gunderson.
and welcome to Winesplained, honest talk about sustainable wine.
Yeah, we're here to drink some wine and explore some of the hard to answer questions around sustainable wine and the wine industry.
Running a winery, we get lots of questions, and as much as we like to run our mouths, if you're here in person, we sometimes need to tell people we'll get back to you on that. And I guess this is us getting back to you on it. I think we're kind of excited about this.
Yeah, we are so excited. But I'm still, kind of in a quandary as to how in the world we got to this place. And
That was my fault.
yeah, we're doing a podcast about sustainability in wine, and
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long path for me thinking about sustainability. I've been with Coopers. We work at Coopers Hall for 6 years, and sort of along the way, we've just continued to talk about sustainability, what that means, and found out we don't really know, even though it seems like we're very confident in all of our industry marketing and discussions that we've had. But at the end of the day, I don't think we really understand what's going on.
yeah. So that's really interesting. I mean, we're 7 years deep into Coopers Hall, a winery that kind of hangs its hat on sustainability.
Yeah.
And 7 years later, we are in front of other people trying to figure out what in the world sustainability means, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've asked you quite often, because I wasn't here at the foundations, when the company was started, but I definitely came into it with the understanding we do keg wine. That's the basic of it,
Right. Yeah.
and that's sustainable in itself,
Yeah,
inherently built
absolutely.
into the system. But I know from the winemaker side, who's the person that hired me, Phil Kramer, he definitely had a lot more it's about sustainability. It's about cutting waste, and he follows that all the way through in his growing methods, struggles with it every day. But I think you didn't come here to Coopers Hall with that same perspective, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that when we opened Coopers Hall back in 2014, or when we were forming the brand in 2013, I was brought in as the person in Portland who knew about wine in keg, right? So it wasn't about sustainability for me. It was about bringing quality wine into restaurants in a keg format. So basically, talking a lot of Willamette Valley winemakers into putting their wine in keg, and that was really to create a quality product in front of a consumer for a cheaper price, which, again, it was part of our, sustainability was wrapped into sort of beginning conversations of Coopers Hall, but truthfully, a huge component of sort of this draft wine in keg concept, this notion of eliminating bottle waste was also really eliminating wine waste for restaurants, not necessarily for a environmental sustainability notion, but for sustainability as it pertains to restauranting and actually running a restaurant and not losing your shirt from your wine program. So, again, it's I feel like sustainability, as we even sort of launched this brand, I didn't come at it, from, I think when we think about sustainability, we think about it from an environmental standpoint alone.
Yeah, that's what our culture likes to talk about. We talk about the green aspect of everything, but I think the financial aspect has been our selling point for the past 6 years since I've been here. It's reducing the amount of waste from maybe a bottle open that doesn't get used to the cost.
Right.
I imagine wine is a lot more cost effective when you're buying a keg and you don't have to worry about the bottles and everything like that. That's your experience in general. You get awesome things from it as well. You get to meet winemakers, taste through things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, though, for you, sustainability, as you came into this program, was more along the green line,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
you took a job here at Cooper's Hall. You weren't coming in here to try to crunch numbers for restaurateurs. Like you could have given less of a shit than that.
I'd like to avoid that.
Right? Like you actually care about the environment.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I started my little, I wouldn't call it a crusade, but I had a tiff with the ag teacher at my high school when I was writing in the school newspaper. And it would have been a back and forth, but he never wrote an official letter to the editor, and our teacher was very much like, can't change anything. You didn't write anything to the editor. So it was, growing up in Western Kansas, I see conventional agriculture, and we started to have that discussion of like, where's water going to come from? Because it's the wells are running dry. You dig deeper.
You started your TIF in high school, but I think you continued it into a pretty egg-centered college that you went to in Kansas as well, right?
So I was up against the agronomy teachers there as well, but there's a few people really discussing it, but for the most part, 10, 11, 12, 14 years ago, it just wasn't something to even talk about,
right?
Because you grow this way, and this is how you get the most yield. But in wine, there's a whole new avenue of what sustainability is, even just in growing. Organic doesn't mean the same thing in wine, even though people think it has a specific meaning. It definitely doesn't equal true sustainability.
Right. And that's really interesting. Like coming from a state like Kansas, when you're looking for how to maximize yield, high yield product. Obviously, in the Willamette Valley, we really are a valley that emphasizes low yields.
It's a selling point.
Because it's a selling point, right? So we're trying to emphasize quality, trying to emphasize low yield, but we aren't necessarily like low yield does not necessarily. It's not a one-to-one correlation to sustainability either, right? I mean,
it's theory a lot of the time.
Well, I mean,
it's our feeling.
It really has to do with trying to emphasize quality of the fruit. I don't care about low yielding vines because I care about the environment. I care about low yielding vines because I care about the quality of the product. And I know that a low yielding vine, more often than not, is going to create a more concentrated end product.
At the same,
and a more structured.
As a counterpoint, once you really start to think about growing fruit, you can put those vines really close together, space them a foot apart, and then what's the point of a low yield if you're hyper and intensely farming on the same property? You can still say low yield vines, but per acre, it's not a low yield. It could be a high yield crop.
So, I mean, here it is. We're starting a podcast about sustainability. We have very little of an idea of what sustainability actually is. And we're confronted with this every day, right? I mean, like, we talk about this all the time. Like, you and I spend 8 hours a day doing our job in a space. I mean, sorry, longer. Of course, we spend more time than that. But and we don't. And we've been doing this for a long time, and we still don't have a handle on it. Like, if we don't have a handle on sustainability, I feel like the confusion around this word has to be even larger out there, right? Like,
even at the grocery store, I will have someone checking me out and say like, "Oh, have you had this wine?" It's or I only buy organic wine. And, oh, what's the reasoning behind that? And often it's a feeling. It's the idea that, oh, well, it's organic, so it must be better,
right.
Which is the same thing we cover in our vegetables and our purchasing in general. Right. It's the what's your idea? You call it cleansing ritual.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, it's a contemporary cleansing ritual through commodity, and so it's this idea that you can actually purchase morality. Like, you can go to a store and by your sort of purchasing decisions, be cleansed and be moral and be ethical And that is one of the sort of like structures of sustainability out there in the world, right? That's part of the sort of general ethos. When people say, "Are you sustainable?" what they're really asking is, "Will I be cleansed if I purchase this product? Will I feel good about myself? Will I feel extra good about myself if I purchase this product?" And that's a conundrum, right? Because as we build a brand that hangs its hat on sustainability, we have to constantly go back to this sort of thing like, are we full of shit? are we just building sort of like an sort of Oz-like moment where we're behind the curtain, or if we go into sort of our traditions, Christianity, are we that person offering this thing that only we can provide?
Repentance.
Yeah, this sort of repentance, this sort of like
the flights we take to across the family,
yeah, right?
just to visit on a weekend.
But we know that we don't know.
Yeah,
right. And that what we're doing and what we're confronting on a daily basis is this idea of, are we actually sustainable? And also, what does sustainability mean? And I feel like some of that is that we need to kind of pull back the lens a bit and uncouple sustainability from environmentalism alone, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started discussing this a little bit more, as far as our sourcing, how we make wine, how we decide to grow our fruit or buy fruit from other vineyards, we started out with, we want live certified fruit. That was the basics of it. And live is a certification up in the Pacific Northwest. We'll talk about it in another episode later on down the road. But it's basically between organic and biodynamic. There's just different ways to label the wine, but it gives you a philosophy to build off of, like a point system, and then you're good. You have sustainable wine. But we started to find, like, is that really true? As labor issues became a little bit more difficult to source people to help out in the vineyard, just to de-leaf. One of the easier jobs out there. We realized, our winemaker realized, this is going to be harder and harder as people realize what the costs are, the true costs. We don't account for the healthcare of some of the people that work very hard for a decade, and then their body is shot, tired, because they're leaning over all day.
Yeah, that's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's not. So sustainability, it's way beyond this idea of, well, you can wash your hands. We got a certification, because there's people involved. There's movement involved. There's transport. And right now, there's not really anything that captures all of that.
Right.
So did we want to read the definition of sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, like, if we go on Google right now and take a look at sustainability,
so it's sustainability is the capacity to endure in a relatively ongoing way across various domains of life.
Right.
That's
right.
That's out there.
Right?
Yeah,
well, I mean, it's really broad, right? I mean, it does speak to endurance, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, it's not. I think what we're dealing with is even something more specific, right? Sustainability in wine, and sustainability in purchasable products, right? So it's a. I mean, I like that definition.
Yeah, I think we were surprised when we saw it yesterday.
Yeah.
But you think it over, it makes a little more sense. There's another definition, sustainability. It focuses on meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs.
Okay. Yeah.
So that goes even further beyond just like, hey, we're hanging out today, trying to think of what's the best way to do it. It's 100 years from now.
Right.
What does that look like?
Yeah, and in a way, it flies in the face of market interest right now. And I think generally people, and we're in a young wine growing area, here in the Willamette Valley. I mean, we're really truly less than 60 years old, 70 years old when it comes to what we're doing here. And And a lot of the decisions that young businesses and young, basically, infrastructures have to make is, well, we need to turn a profit today, or else we're going to be gone tomorrow.
Especially in a time where
Right.
more takeout packaging,
Yeah.
more retail packaging. Last year we barely sold any kegs because restaurants were closed half the time.
Yeah.
So how do you just take out that system entirely and still be sustainable?
I think one of the things, that's another sort of, you're not going to find it in Google, in a Google search today, but I think the definition of sustainability is highly political right now too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely
crazy.
markets. There's definitely markets that I go into where I don't say the word sustainable. I don't say sustainability because I know that it's going to be a left-leaning red flag for that consumer, for that person that I frankly want to sell my product to. And so I think, there's this other barrier that we're seeing, which is sort of this sort of false similarity between a political idea and what is actually a sort of long-term goals idea, actually, right? It's like, hey, I don't want to do a thing that wears me out, and I want to do a thing but what I do want to do is a thing that helps my children.
And I mean, wouldn't that, it does frustrate me a little bit that became politicized.
Right.
Because my family very much was, my dad saved every single piece of plastic, and it's the hopeful recycling. He put it in the recycling, and most of the time it was never recyclable. The waxed paper bags that he thought cereal was made out of, not actually waxed paper in the first place, and it's not recyclable even at that. But he's been putting it into the system forever.
I'd say I'm a hopeful recycler.
Yeah.
Like
we found most of us are.
I mean, so look, we've been talking for the last, I don't know how many minutes about sustainability, but I mean, I'm a father of three. I run a business that hangs its hat on sustainability, but I mean, I don't think I'm really that. Here's the thing: like, how genuine am I outside of my business? How genuine am I as it comes to?
Do you actually go out of the way to do anything?
Absolutely not.
Or
no.
Like maybe load some of that onto me.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like with this business, I do count on people like you who actually are truly passionate about sustainability as it pertains to the environment for that aspect of growing our business in an ethical way that is genuine and true, because I don't have it. I don't, we're part of the OBRC Green Bottle Drop, right?
Ooh, should we talk about our wine?
We can in a second, but I just want to say,
drink some.
I don't even drop off the green bottle. Like, I don't do the green bag. I don't do it. It's easy. It's so easy.
So many times I've talked about
this. Yeah.
It's money in your pocket too. There's even a financial incentive.
I just don't.
It's a hurdle.
And I just know though that if I'm somebody who is investing a lot of time into environmental sustainability through my business, and also, shopping organic, I get my hand washed there. It means that I don't have to. Means I don't have to do other things, right?
Yeah.
No.
I think there's so much more than that. I think you have the question, is sustainability sexy? And I think it is. The idea that we can build a society together, which is so idealistic.
Right, yeah.
And, looking at how we all interact with each other recently, it's impossible to think we'll ever get there. But I want to think that we can all take one step further to maybe making sure that bottle gets recycled, or somehow incentivizing, you know, reduction of styrofoam, reduction of plastic waste. But how realistic is that? You know,
Yeah.
we have the Joel Gundersons of the world,
Yeah, and
just making it every day.
and honestly, like that's why I have you around is because I understand that I do come from a certain jaded perspective. Like I do understand that I want to care. I desperately want to care, but I don't, right? And I don't because I honestly don't think like on a personal level that what I do matters, right? And so I don't have the heart for personal sustainability, and you do, right? Which is so. I mean, so I literally, I mean, and honestly, like, and Phil Kramer, like our winemaker and my partner in this business, like he does too. It was one of the things when we first opened Cooper's Hall. I was like, well, thank God he's here because I don't have to be full of shit.
You're here to sell wine.
I'm
right?
I'm here like I love wine. I love the product. It's a beautiful product. I love quality. I love quality things. I love enjoying quality things. I love helping other people enjoy quality things. But, and I understand the importance of sustainability. You know, mentally I get it, but I don't have the heart for it, and you do. And so I think that, like that is something where it's like I lean on you for that.
I think even at that same jaded, you know, philosophy thinking is exactly why we're here in the first place.
Right.
You know, we think that we're doing something right, but just never feels like it's enough. It never feels like it really does anything.
Right.
Because let's be honest, we are small. We only do a few thousand cases every year, or equivalents in kegs. But if there's not anyone doing that, you know, where do we all go?
Right.
We talk about creating this path forward for the industry. We've been on the edge. We've been a disruption brand, is what I think we've talked about a lot. Because who else in 2013 was saying, we're just going to keg up some wine?
Yeah.
There was like two other people thinking that around the same time, and one failed pretty much immediately down in California. So it is difficult. It's stumbling through. Our entire philosophy changed from when I started. Like the shift had already happened from sourcing wine all around the world, kegging it up, and bringing it across the state, across the city, country, to restaurants. And immediately, basically after opening, that changed, like because that also wasn't sustainable, right? So
it wasn't sustainable for the market. It wasn't sustainable on other levels. So again, this word kind of just jumps around as we as we try to pin it down. And but I mean, we keep bringing up packaging. That's going to be one of the things that we're going to talk about a lot in future podcasts.
We'll get hopefully not very dry. We'll have some great people on, but we'll talk about viticulture, so growing fruit, what inputs go into each crop, because grapes are a very input-heavy product. Even though on the outside, it's like we all hold up our glass and it's beautiful, and we would like to pretend it's always hand-picked and made in little wood vats, when that is not really true, and that's something you find pretty quickly. But a lot of it is, especially in the smaller area, the Willamette Valley, our smaller producers here. But if you look at the wider scale, most people are still trucking it in from a big industrial picker, not touched by hands most of the time, and it's almost all processed automatically to some extent on some of these facilities.
Yeah, and so we're gonna touch on a bunch of things. We're going to touch on other ideas of sustainability. Obviously, we've already mentioned people, labor. These are things that when the general market consumer buys their sort of self-cleansing product, they aren't asking, oh, is this organic product like grown and picked by somebody who treats other people well?
How much do those people get paid?
Yeah, how much do those people get paid, right? We're going to talk about refillable packaging,
and what the direction is heading there. And we'll try to avoid saying the word sustainability too much because it is overdone. It's greenwashed. There's a lot of that same jaded concept. We sit here and think about, oh, it's another person talking about sustainability. Oh, great. At least I do. Right. So we're gonna dive a little deeper. Next episode is going to be with a wonderful human being.
Yeah, it's going to be with John Paul with Cameron Winery, and we're going to talk about iconoclasm, and we're going to pick that idea apart. It's a word that gets used a lot in the wine industry, and it can be utilized to mean a lot of things.
It also doesn't get used a whole lot elsewhere. So for people like me, who's not a poet, as Joel is, maybe we'll just cover some real basics of it. Talk a little bit about sort of philosophy, going back to certifications, which is something that has a lot of random meanings, but no one really understands all the time. And even people that understand and do it don't fully know what it means sometimes.
Absolutely. So, I think people do it instinctually. And we're going to drink wine together and talk about some of the wine that we're drinking. And what do we got in front of us right now here, Adam?
We started with our house favorite. This is from Alex Ellie Vineyard, so our winemaker's vineyard out near Molalla in Silverton, so about an hour southeast of Portland, Oregon. And this is Gewürztraminer. This is an underappreciated grape because you can't pronounce it. Why drink it? But we really like this one. It's kind of a gem. Our winemakers purchased the vineyard it's a 40-year-old vineyard, somewhere around there.
It's 41 years.
41, yeah.
And I think the other thing with Gewürztraminer is that it's like so many other things. It gets wrapped into a sort of market idea about what the grape is all about. And so everybody, the first thing that people say to us when we say, hey, you should try our Gewürztraminer, they're like, oh, that's going to be a sweet wine.
Or what? What?
Yeah,
what did you say?
Yeah, what is that all about? But this is an ancient varietal, and it has a ton of expression. And from where we are in the Willamette Valley, we're in the eastern Willamette Valley. So our vineyard is moderated by the Cascade foothills, and what we have there is a growing season that has cooler edges. And so what this wine expresses is fruit that is kind of right at the end of its life. I mean, through its entire growing life, but really like as we approach ripening phase, we see in early fall these cooler nights, these cooler mornings. It gives us great acidity. It gives us the ability to make an expressive Gewürztraminer that has low alcohol, even though Gewürztraminer has high alcohol potential. And it has a bunch of acidity, even though Gewürztraminer often is a wine that turns on itself and is harvested with lower acidity. So we're going to drink wine together, talk about maybe different ideas about the wine that we're drinking, as just like we're going to talk about the different ideas around sustainability and a lot of these sort of assumptions that we bring to the table about wine and about the wine industry. And so
we hope you'll muddle through this together with us. And at the end, we probably won't have many answers to these questions.
I don't think that we're actually going to find answers to these questions. I think what we're actually going to do is kind of explode the questions. I think the questions we're going to realize that these questions are actually bigger than we thought they were. And so, I'm really, as I was thinking about the podcast today, this is not going to be a negative only podcast. There's a lot that we're pushing against. And I know that we have hope at the end of it as well.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Join us.
Thank you for joining us.